I want to talk about healing today, and I'm probably never irreverent about healing and pain that people deal with. I am irreverent when it comes to people pretending they're not in pain and, being hypocritical about that sort of thing, so I make fun of humans. But I really respect the fact that people are struggling in life. So I want to talk about this idea of healing, because when we beam into planet Earth, and I don't care what we struggle with, it all still pertains to today. You can be struggling and have a sickness called lack, financial lack. It could be rejection, it could be things like that, but it can also be depression. So whatever a person struggles with, even physical illness, whatever people struggle with, it doesn't exist in God. That's the good news. The bad news is we believe we're separate from God, therefore sky's the limit. Create all kinds of funky things, We sort of live as though we're in exile somewhere, in some bizarre, planetary, quarantine of some kind. It's just odd. But we live here. We have, God is saying, I give you everything you need. You are made in my image. And we say, okay, hold that thought. We're going to go live in a dimension of time limitation, suffering, death, prosperity, and God's going, I wouldn't advise it. Yeah, I know. But we have a different idea. And so off we go to this kind of bizarro planet. But if you were completely, truly in heaven 10 seconds ago, and you beamed in right now, you would still be able to maintain, even on earth, a certain amount of awareness of expansiveness. Your breath, even though you're in a body, the body would symbolize your consciousness, and if you just beamed in from heaven, your consciousness would be beautiful and expansive. Therefore, it would be the aura, wow, vast, man. Chakras just beaming, and you'd feel that presence. Sometimes you feel that from me up here, and sometimes from each other spiritual teachers perhaps, sometimes healers, or in your meditations. You go, wow, that's just a tip of the iceberg of what we're supposed to be feeling all the time and capable of feeling all the time, and far better. But there could be this constant wave of expansiveness. But wounds, shames, physical traumas, emotional traumas, each one of those shut us down a little more, and we become stuck. Literally stuck. Like literally the vertebra of the spine no longer can move. They're not as pliable. They start to suction. Everything starts to become like glue. We're not, our joints aren't supposed to be glued. Go to a really good body worker. They work the joints. They say, God, there's some a tissue. There's some thickness. There's some, the tissue actually starts to almost like it's a coagulation of some kind, a thickening. That's not supposed to be there. You're not supposed to brush through people's auras and feel creatures. It's supposed to be, they're blessed to have worked your aura because it's so beautiful and expansive, and it's, wow, the dancing in your aura is making me, the healer, feel like dancing. Oh, wow. It's supposed to all be wow. And instead, not wow, but I gotta go get myself smudged after working on you, So we're supposed to be feeling expansive and happy, but that's not what happens. Healing will give us the liberation that we started forgetting. But I'm telling you, even the joints, the cells, it's all supposed to feel liberated. We should be feeling liberation in every cell, every particle. Liberation meaning freedom. Oh, the whole being feeling free, But then there are several emotions. Those traumas, they start kind of getting locked in. And there's different reasons why it picks different parts of the body. Sometimes it happens to be a karmic location that you came in with from another lifetime. Believe it or not, you can come in from another lifetime where somebody took you out with a spear in the chest, let's say. And this lifetime, there's no people spearing, and all that. But when you have somebody hurt your feelings, you won't know why, but it kind of went here. And then the next time somebody hurts your feeling, a little more, and then a little more, and it starts to become a mess in your lungs. Because it's thickened and it started manifesting. We hear the Word of God was made manifest, in the Scriptures. We hear that. So it's not just the Word of God you're also made in God's image, so your word starts to become manifest. And if your word is resentment, see, the word of God made manifest was called the Christ on earth, which is also within us. But the word of God is also the word in you as God is manifesting. What is your word? Peace, joy, liberation, healing. No, I don't really talk about that stuff. I don't want to remember that. And it starts becoming masses. Joints that don't move, or masses as in growths, or whatever, inflammations, every kind of stuff, physical, but also emotional. Anger, for example, we think, there's people out there that say anger is normal, just embrace it. Anger is not normal. Anger is not felt in God. Therefore, why would it be our will to say, let's just be the anger? All right? Anger is actually a symptom. You have to feel hurt before you get angry. You have to feel something else. So human beings are learning, and I've been promoting this idea in my book called Healing the Heart and Soul, about healing the core issues. I'm not saying ignore the symptomatic issues, not at all. But the symptomatic issues can lead us on a journey to find the core issues. In a nutshell, and emotions, core issues, emotions generally, negative emotions, they feed each other. One will feed another and make it bigger, and this just becomes this descent, this nosedive. But the progression or digression looks like this. We all have in our core of our being a perfect, holy Christ, God presence. That's the good news. Then we said to ourselves, what is it like I wonder to be separate from God, and started feeling fear and guilt about that idea. And then to cope with that, instead of this perfect Christ, holy presence, there becomes this band of darkness around the Christ self. So let's say I'm manifesting right here and now. So I'm the Christ, and I stand and I glow, and my hand gestures are mudras, and I'm speaking, and as I'm speaking, channeling the God in Christ's presence, and we're all dancing in the delight of God. And we're having that experience. Then something happens to me, like the songs we listened to today. In case the folks watching want to know, that includes things like Wildflower, the 60s, 70s song, and then To the Moon and Back by Savage Garden. Those songs are describing what happens to us after we're hurt. So here I am in this God self, and then wrapping around me this dark cloud. And that's the ego self. Now when you look at me, you no longer see me, you see my wounds. And I see yours. But we don't like the idea, hey, how you doing? You look terrible, you too. Okay. We don't like just walking around seeing each other's wounds. So then we have to put some masks up front. Hey, good to see you. God, you look great. You too. What did we just see? It's kind of like people meet and say, listen, do me a favor. I won't show you my darkness if you won't show me yours. Remember the old, show me yours, I'll show you mine. If you can hide yours, I'll hide mine. Agreed? Okay. Hey, how you doing? You look great. You too. Okay, bye. And we're done for that conversation. When the truth is, inside people are hurting. And they don't want to be a bummer. They don't want to be, the fly in the ointment today. They don't want to say, well, you asked how I'm doing. To tell you the truth, I'm experiencing the terror of what it's like to be separate from God. How are you? How do you answer? What if somebody said that? Look, look over there. Oh, and run, bolt to get away from the conversation. Because people are so uncomfortable with it. Because you'd have to pause and go, I'm sorry, me too. What's happening for you? And be able to engage at that level. And that's the level we could and should be able to communicate. That sometimes I don't feel like I'm remembering the God experience. Why? What's happening? And somebody's maybe accessing the roots. Maybe we just hold them while they do it. Maybe, hold space. And sometimes we can go into that place with them where we're actually reminding them of the light at the end of the tunnel. Or sometimes helping them delve deeper into whatever it is and helping them find the roots so that we can pull those things out. It's right and it's healthy, and that's how we can and should be there for each other. So the ego is an interesting thing because it has this layer wrapped around, and then we start creating masks to survive. And the ego says, well, that's really fine and dandy, but I have other ideas too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant not only the feeling of separation, which is what the ego is, and that's wrapped around our light, but then the ego says, and I'm not only going to keep it sabotaged inside, your belief that you're separate, I'm now planting. I'm gardening. How are you doing today? I'm just gardening. What are you doing, ego? I'm just gardening. Well, we don't bother asking, what are you planting? Oh, terror. Low self-worth, core emotions, guilt. Oh, really? And then what it does is, okay, now planting those is fine. But the way industry works on planet Earth, and in my opinion, one of its grossest ways, is it produces a product and then tells you need it. Isn't that gross? I didn't know there were so many things on Earth I didn't need. But no, people instead go, really? I just heard a commercial that I should be using that soon. I probably should get some now before something happens. And you got to go get it. And you didn't even think it through to go, wait, I'm not even interested in that. That's what the ego does. It plants these core emotions. And then it says, out in the world, it starts planting people that are going to harm you to trigger those core emotions, or it's like building a demand. So it goes out and it makes people behave in ways, to treat you in ways that are going to trigger those very core emotions. And then the next step is, that's all done so that it can validate and verify that you have a problem. So it plants, for example, low self-worth. Now, it's got to go out there and find somebody to walk up and say, you don't look well. Or, I'm sorry, you didn't get that job. I knew it. Somewhere I knew that I wasn't going to get that. Why? Because inside of me there's this growing plant called low self-worth, and the ego's planted it out there to tell somebody to reject me, to mirror my low self-worth. But that's okay. I was really bummed, but then I met someone. Oh, it all worked out, man. They really helped me, when I was going to crash, and they had money, and they said, you don't really have to work. Oh my God, I felt such a relief because somebody came in to save the day. And they dumped me for no reason 3 weeks later. And you see what's happening? Create the demand, and then shorten the demand and make you think you need even more of it. Now it's harder to find, so we'll raise the price on it. This is the way the ego, and you can see the relationship of the way the ego loves to run our lives, but the way it runs industry. Lies, man. All lies. You don't lack anything, so don't buy it that you need something. If we could all just go, being with somebody is kind of cool, but I actually don't feel like I need it. Being with somebody is great. If not, it's great too. And it's a funny thing, today, I don't have someone. You think loneliness is not a core issue. First, somebody has to plant in you that you need something, then dangle them over there. Look, I'm pretty. You want some of this? Oh yeah, I think so. How much is it? And the price isn't money. You'd be lucky if you could get away with just paying for a fee for that kind of dysfunction. You pay with your soul. You pay from the guts. Your organs, your glands, your psyche, all are paying the price for believing in what people are selling. And, there's a way to wake up. But there is a digression of these emotions. And as we move on down the ladder, obviously we get to a place where the ego is going to start through these triggers from inside of me, outside, making people do and feel, behave certain ways to trigger those core emotions. Now they've got me. It's got me. My ego, but also the pain. And then the pain's going to manifest for some of us as depression. Everybody's depressed a little bit, just so we're clear about that. There's not like, thank God, the rest of us are cool, but there's that one depressed person. Everybody's depressed a bit, to some degree or another. It's hard to lose your life savings and not be depressed. How are you going to say, oh, I felt great? Usually, well, I did. I felt kind of bummed. If you're in pain, chronic fatigue, for example, if you're in pain, fibromyalgia, if you're in pain for a long duration, it starts to get depressing. So people, whether the pain's minor, some people are depressed, not even long-term pain, as soon as they hear they have something. You have a cold, oh, I knew it. And they just drop. Because that's how we are. We can't afford a whole lot. We're so messed up, we can't afford a lot. So a little something happens and we start crashing. But let's just accept. And it's not like you're going, he's planting negatives in my mind. Guys, it's better for us to own it so that we can transform it. And if you think it's only your neighbor or your kid that's depressed and you're not, you can't help them anyway because you're detaching from them. It's better for us to go, yes, you know what? We all have love and we all have fear. Well, we all have joy and we all have depression. Which animal are you feeding today? Which one are you nurturing today? And take responsibility to change that. There are lots of reasons. You could say, well, I'm not depressed, but I have hypothyroid. That's not the point. I already said the ego within will go outside and create things, including physical things in your body, to manifest the core emotions. So if I have a core emotion of loneliness, let's say, sadness or whatever it happens to be, loneliness is really, like I said, a symptom, but a core emotion, guilt or fear, low self-worth, then the hypothyroid is just going to become a manifestation of that. And it doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Oh, I knew it, so I'm the one who's creating. Don't get all weird about it. Don't push yourself like that. But you might have the hypothyroid. You might have iron deficiency. And somebody's going to analyze the iron deficiency. But remember, just spiritually, go ahead and take the extra iron and take the extra nutrients that help you absorb the iron. But also, look in the soul as to what's feeding the ego beliefs that you're needing to feel the way you're feeling and then needing the iron. Is that making sense? All right. Chemical imbalances, genetics, there's all kinds of things that can kind of take us. Believe it or not, entities, attachments, entities oppressing us, possessing us. There's different terminology there for different reasons, but some are oppressing, some are possessing, but entities can cause this. And if you know anybody that struggles with a lot of depression, deep depression, ongoing depression, intense levels of depression, it can be any one of these or a group of these things. Adrenal fatigue, chronic fatigue. Believe it or not, you can even have depression because your root chakra is unplugged. And sometimes the root chakra doesn't get plugged in because you're kind of a sensitive soul. And I've met some of you here in private sessions, we talked about this. There are souls out there that are very sensitive. And they're like, okay, going to go into the earth plane. It's going to be a breeze. This is great. If they're even that. Some of them remember and go, going where? Earth? I've been there. It's not good. It's not good. I've been there. But others are like, oh, it sounds lovely. And so whichever of those two you are, you come into the earth plane, and no sooner do you get here, and it's like, oh wow, the quickening happens in the womb, and we're like, wow, and we're in a mommy's womb, and the temperature and the water, and every so often mommy touches the tummy with this like, are you there, honey? It's so beautiful. And then, dad starts screaming about something, and it's like, well, who the hell's that? The baby's like, Mom, let's leave him. No. I mean, sorry. But anyway, Mommy, do you have a car? You know what we do in heaven? We don't go to hell. Just FYI, Mom, you might want to try it. But in every one of those screamings, those fits, those yucky things, including ow, and the nausea Mommy gets, the baby's a little uncomfortable going, wait, this was a great idea on the other side before we were feeling the actual density of it. And now, wow. Then, of course, labor pains. And think about that, man. The baby's not like, oh, this is so beautiful. Labor, screaming and clenching, and the baby like, what do you want, me to go or not? You're 1 minute you're pushing, the next minute you're clenching. Then it starts grabbing the pelvic bones. I'm not going anywhere, Find someone else. Do we have any walk-ins? I'm going to advertise walk-ins. Newwomb.com, womb for rent. I channel these things, babe. You guys can't blame me. Anyway, the pain, and that's just the least of it. Coming into the cold rooms, the sterile, the stainless steel vibe, hospitals where people are dying and in pain and families are crying, or if that's where you get. I'm just saying it's an example. Earth, it's a dense place, and some souls are very sensitive. And they don't know how to get here. So they come into their body like you're supposed to. but they don't take the elevator all the way to the ground floor. Even though people talk about it the other way, their elevators don't go all the way to the top. It's our elevators don't come all the way to the ground. So we live in this sometimes spacey, dissociated state. The logic is, if I don't go in all the way, maybe I'm a little safer. But the truth is, when you don't go in all the way, you're more likely to be prey for predators. And they love sensitive people, because whatever they do to you, they know generally they'll get away with it, because you're so sensitive. And you hide away, and they can sense that. I know it sounds weird, but souls can sense that sort of thing. That you're already afraid, so they can take advantage, So these things, the hypersensitive soul that doesn't come all the way in, can add to depression. Unhealed traumas, unhealed wounds, dramatic or excessive losses can just drop us. It could be your house, your job, people leaving you. It can just drop us. But remember, the ego's already planted in there a core emotion that these events are now grabbing hold of. Heal symptomatically, but it's wise. Heal on the soul level. It's much smarter. Repressed emotions can do this to us. Spiritual or psychological fatigue. Because even if you're spiritual, man, it does get tiring sometimes to see and hear and feel the stuff of planet Earth. It's not easy. Seeing the pain of people and feeling the pain of people, it's not easy, And the more spiritual you are, you probably are a little bit sensitive. So that fact that you're sensitive makes it hard to hear dense stuff. Some of the gross behaviors and traumatizing events. Physical fatigue obviously can play quite a role on the psyche. And again, I said intense stuff, but also consistent stuff. And sometimes it's intense and consistent at the same time. So how do you deal with the trauma? Because trauma is going to happen intensely or repetitively. Obviously, you have to do healing repetitively, which I call consistently. And instead of calling it intensely, dramatically in a good way, called miraculously. So you have to match the stuff of this world, at least match it. The stuff of this world's going to happen repetitively and intensely, so bring in the healing that's consistent and miraculous. You can't just kind of get by. You can't just go, okay, I've had all kinds of horrible behaviors, people abusing me and traumatizing me, an aspirin ought to do it. It doesn't help. You match it or better. And there's even other things that depress people. One of them that's not that respectable, mind you, is the ego dramatics through the tortured artist. Sometimes we play parts like that. Oh, I'm just put me up on a cross. I'm just a victim and the tortured artist. Nobody understands me. Sometimes we actually create our own depressions by playing roles that aren't really healthy. And you okay? All right. The one thing I want to talk about next is, what do we do about these things? Because people will say to me, I hear you, I've gone through these things, but how do you actually heal deep emotions? You got to get to soul level healing, which we've talked about, and I'll elaborate in a sec. But it's not going to help if we ignore these things. It's not going to help if we just go, well, I'm just going to whistle a little louder and I'm much better. If you don't have the courage to look in the soul to see the core issues, you'll only ever be dealing with symptoms. It's better than nothing, mind you. Good job. You might have to just force yourself to get up and go for a walk and get fresh air. It helps. That doesn't cure you. It's just that it helps. Depression is like an entity that wants to immobilize you. And what do you think you have to do? The only time immobilized is healthy is when you choose it, and you choose it for a time period. Okay, I feel really immobilized. I'm going to sit in a warm bubble bath, a candle, and some beautiful healing music, and I'll read a prayer. At least if I'm going to be immobilized, let me choose to do it. I don't want to be a victim, because then it becomes a reality. So I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it in a different way. Trauma, don't try to make sense of it. If it made sense, it wouldn't have been done. If anybody had any sense about them, they wouldn't have hurt you. So when you try to logic it out, it just doesn't work. So what happens to some of us is There must be another way. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm tired of being tired. I'm tired of being sick. Good job, but guess what? Being tired of it will not heal you. You might grow a little impatient. You might, but use that fire to do something about it. How do you motivate a depressed person? Think about it. When you say, oh, I'm going to cheer you on. You can do it. Oh, thanks. Everybody I know just died. And you're going, you can do it. I want them back. I want anything. Sanity of any kind. So the cheering people on. Life coaches are perfect for some things. And perfect for a person dealing with deep, dark things like depression. But not until after they've uprooted some of it. Because you have to make room for the new way the life coach is trying to give you. If a life coach is working with a deeply depressed person, in a way they're polishing the outside of a tomb. That one's not mine. That was from the Bible. Okay? Some of you are like, man, this guy is dark sometimes. Polished it out of the tomb. Yes. Because inside there's death still. So you can't fake these things. Soul level healing. We've got to have the courage to heal and heal at the deepest level. In a sense, you could say that trauma freezes us. Healing starts to thaw us out. But once you're in the habit of being frozen, like if you've had Novocaine or painkillers, local anesthetics and so forth, it doesn't always feel good when that stuff wears off, which is why some people get addicted to pain meds. Well, this is interesting. I kind of liked that. Let me just go back for a little more, and it becomes an addiction. Because it's harder to heal than it is to be numb. But only one of those will bring you peace. Only one. And it isn't the numbness. The numbness will only intensify the issues for later. So we can choose when we heal, but we do not choose that we will heal. That's going to happen. So would you like that now or later? I've had a tooth worked on, a root canal kind of thing before. And I just told him, don't use any anesthetic, man. Let's go for it, baby. Just go. Because I get annoyed at what happens with the anesthetic. So I'm like, just go for it. And if I cry, just be with me, brother. But it's just go for it. Now, I'm not saying that's the best way for everybody. What I'm saying is I'm aware of the metaphor. And and the metaphor is, do not think that going through the pain is the negative choice between that and numbing, whether it's alcohol or any other kind of an addiction. So, but depression isn't what people think. I wish there was a better fix on this. I wish, given all our ideas, science and medicine and analysis to figure out what depression is, I don't believe that the world understands what depression really is. Typically, before you're depressed, something has made you sad. And then, you deal with that for long enough, and then you start to feel depressed. And then after depressed, you start to feel hopeless. Sometimes hopeless comes before depressed. But it's typically a sadness, and it can happen so fast, all you see is the one, depression. First, there's a sadness. And I'm going to add another word, because depression is really a recipe of sadness mixed with other things, like tired. Okay? Depression includes tired, which is why you feel tired when you're depressed. You don't just feel sad, you feel tired. Something has not gone well for you. Now, A Course in Miracles seems merciless on the topic of depression, because it's going to say, depression comes from feeling deprived. Depression, deprived. And the only thing that's causing you to feel depressed is actually because you feel deprived. Meaning, and it's blunt for a second, you're not getting something you want. And he's not criticizing you. You spoiled brat, you're not getting the cookie you want, and that's what's causing you depressed. That's not what he's saying. What is it you want? What is he referring to? Peace and love. So see, it's still true. Depression's coming. You're sad and you're tired. This is my 5th marriage and still betrayal. I'm depressed. Yes, because I'm sad that it happened and I'm tired of trying. You feel the tone of that? And then I'm also feeling a bit angry, frustrated and angry. And depressed Depressed is a good day for some people. Because depressed can go into, like I said, hopelessness. And think of the word, the meaning of hopelessness. There is no hope. Think of, if you believe that, what state of mind you have to be in. And hopelessness is a good day for some, called despair. That's really out there. Despair. Now you're even beyond hopelessness inside. Despair. And despair can lead to suicidal tendencies. This can all happen in seconds, minutes, hours, months, years, however long it's going to take. But nobody ever just goes, God, I'm kind of bummed, and chooses to die. Usually this is ongoing. They've come in already sensitive. The world's beating them up, and they're not handling it as well as some who have a little thicker skin. People, if you've been a soldier in other lifetimes, you can handle a little more of earth. You're like, oh yeah, I've been here. But the people that come in like fairies, oh, hey, isn't everything great? Bam, 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 bam. Ow. What the heck was that? It's harder to handle. And my heart goes out to these. And my heart goes out to the people they leave behind when they take their own lives. But I do understand it. I do, because it's the pain. It's the ongoing hurt, the hopelessness. I mean, as soon as you hear the word hopelessness, that should conjure up some compassion. And yet the world keeps trying to figure it out with their head, which here's what you really want that causes you to be depressed and you're not getting it, is you want to understand. Fine, people are mean to me, but why? See, it's not just that they're mean that eventually causes you depression. Jesus is saying there's something you don't get and you want to have it, you don't get it, so you're depressed. What is that thing, Jesus? Understanding. I want you to make sure you get that. If I understood why it happened, I might handle it better. If I knew why I was so sensitive, if I knew why people tease me. In school they tease me, I don't understand. The truth is somebody should be able to show up and say, oh, you're one of the sensitives. Let's put you in this class over here where you get to do art and creative things. You follow? See, it's the I don't know. I mean, that's when I was depressed as a kid going, what is happening? I don't get this at all. Why am I always on restriction? Why am I always? It's the not understanding that for me was the most painful. I'm not saying that the trauma is easy, but it is made easier when we understand it. So sometimes we're just looking for clarity. If you understood why that person cheated on you, you would actually handle it better. And you would almost say, we should have done this sooner. We should have ended this sooner or whatever. Understanding and clarity is what people are looking for and not getting, that causes them to eventually descend into despair. And we try all these various means to kind of pull this together. Medicines for depression. I remember a study announced, it was about 5-10 years ago. It's the weirdest thing. On the radio, flipping channels, getting music, and then all of a sudden there was this announcement. A new study was just done on depression. So I thought, let me listen, what's happening with that topic. I like things that relate to people. A new study was done and they just tried a new test medicine for depression. I'm not exaggerating. And 10 of the subjects that tested it, 9 of them committed suicide while they were in the test period. And it's like, what are you people using? Because there's such a desperation. We don't know how to fix you. A great mind, I love Voltaire, if you know who Voltaire is. And he said, these people, by whatever name, whether they're psychiatrists, doctors, whatever they are, scientists, anything, people dole out medicines of which they know little, for a body of which they know even less, for illnesses they know nothing at all. I love that. It's one of those kinds of people that just cuts to the chase. I don't know, I kind of like those kind of people. Anyway, but just to it. So where are we getting these ideas? Why isn't anybody finding out the core issues? Why isn't anybody talking to the soul? Because it can't be measured, it can't be analyzed, it can't be dissected. And if it can't be figured out, they can't sell it. So soul level healing's free. But we just have to have the care to want to figure out how to use that. Soul level healing involves recognizing there's a problem, accepting that there's deeper issues behind the problem, learning to heal them, breathe them out, cry them, puke them out, surrender them to God in some form. And then now the cup is empty, so you refill with the opposite, the presence of God and peace and joy. That's where life coaching can come in handy. Some good, some positives, and giving thanks. A complete system, those 5 steps. They're all in the Healing the Heart and Soul, book, but some of you have your own wording for it. But something along those lines. You have to empty your cup and refill it. This world won't do that for you. So the opposite feelings of despair and depression and hopelessness, sadness, are what? Happiness. That's what we're supposed to be feeling, the opposite. Happiness, joy, even bliss, contentment, right? See, abundanza, abundance. That's supposed to be how we're feeling. It won't happen without healing. So we've got to take ourselves into, what can I use? What would be helpful? Bless you. What would be helpful to heal me? A list of things that would also help, in case you're interested. Obviously, things like affirmations and prayer are helpful. But I'm not going to stay in the sublime, prayerful stuff, spiritual stuff. But prayer and affirmations help a great deal. You've also, believe it or not, if you can find your soul's purpose, it's hard to be depressed and even suicidal when you feel a sense of purpose. Value. And if you want to help other people, help them feel valuable. It's hard when you see that you're working and you're saving, rescuing animals or people or suicide hotlines or doing anything of value, whatever it is, or serving here. Anything you do that helps people, writing a book or whatever it happens to be. It's hard to see the effect you're having on people and be bummed about it. So find a sense of purpose. Or as Edgar Casey said, a solution to depression, service. Be of service. That's one reason why the 12-step programs, you not only are working to connect with God and heal your stuff, they tell you in the third portion of the steps, go and bring it to the world, bring it to others. One reason they're having you do that is so that you create a new sense of self, a new sense of value, which is going to be the opposite of going back to the addictions where you lacked value. There's purpose for all these things, especially these deeply channeled kinds of concepts. And the 12-step program is a channeled one. So we also have doing decrees, prayers, decrees, which I'm going to share with you in just a sec. Patch the leaks in your life. See, when I was a kid, coming home, walking home from school, even if I happened to forget how much my life sucked at the time, even if I could somehow manage to have forgotten that, it slipped my mind for a moment. As soon as I got close enough to the house, turned the corner, Dad's car. Everything would sink. You see? And that's not good. But I'm a kid, so I couldn't really do that much to, I'll move or something, and then I did when I could. But if we're immobilized, we're kind of stuck. But anything you can do to shift the energy, anything you can do to break the pattern. And leaks is what I mean there. If people keep taking advantage, reel it in a little bit. If people take money and they know don't pay you back when you lend them money, don't lend as much. Start reeling in the things that are coming back to you as harms. You see? If you go up to animals, if you're helping with dogs and rescues and dogs and animals, don't reach your hand in quite as far into the cage with one that's got some anger issues. You know? You don't go, oh, hi, puppy, boom, now I hate animals. That's not helping. You see, you have to see beyond that. We'll talk about the role of healers in just a sec. But a couple of other things. Positive thinking. Negative thinking you'll become the depression from your own thoughts sometimes. Sometimes it's you sabotaging your own energy level and positivity level. Which, we don't always like to hear, but sometimes our negativity eventually becomes manifested because, the Word of God becomes manifest and you're the God. So your negativity can, back up on you. Edgar Casey did a reading once, and he talked about soil. And maybe you can look it up. I don't remember. There's a town, he said, a town in the United States. It was, I think, one of the southern states. Can't remember which one, Tennessee or something. And he said the soil there has something in it that he said there's something about it in the soil. There's something about its effects on the body that you can't be depressed when you have contact with that particular soil. So whether it's a chemical response in the body or whatever it happens to be, I mean, they should just be bagging that stuff and shipping it all over. Anyway, another one, sexual healing, especially if it's sexual traumas, obviously. You got to work on that stuff because sexual trauma happens down in the pelvis, in the root chakra, right? And so bringing healing. Now, what's that going to look like? Wow, that conversation can go all kinds of places. I do not believe in the kind that's used inappropriately by some so-called tantric and sexual healers. But I do believe that it can happen and it does have an effect. I remember when they were filming this movie that's finally out now, but this movie about sexual healing a couple years ago, they had me as one of the people interviewed about it. But I only got involved because they told me the movie was going to be about sexual healing. And I told them, you cannot do that. You can't just tell people, just have more sex and it'll heal you. And they said, we agree at first. And they said, so I went and I did the interviews and spent days with them filming and all that. But the movie, and bless them for even doing this, mind you, to do a movie of this topic, but the movie took a turn towards the sexuality instead of the healing. The come out wherever you are. Come out and be the sexuality. I'm like, oh, you can't do that without healing the stuff that undermined him in the first place. And I know they tried to hear, but they also were guided by other people that I don't think were sane. And do you know that now, here it is, within a year of that movie coming out, within months or a year, one of the therapists they used committed suicide. Because she had unhealed wounds around sexuality. And that's what I even said. That's what I was warning about. You can't just do it. No, but it feels great. People want to know about coming out into their femininity. No. Femininity is also the healing. That nurturance, that nurturing healing is part of what people need. So it's a sad thing, but yet it's all somehow perfect because that's now a mirror for people to say, and if you don't do the healing, this is where you could end up. So soul retrieval can help us heal. Grounding exercise, work the hips and legs because it pulls energy down into the body. Soul retrieval is fantastic, but be careful because there are some predatory people that claim to know how to do soul retrieval. They took a 3-hour workshop and they call themselves shaman and whatever, and they're out there. And it's gross. It's gross. If nothing else, sometimes entity extractions and deeper work like that, but also the soul retrieval helps to reassemble the dissociated parts of the psyche. The fear that I leave, every time I'm having sex, I leave my body. I need to learn to come back into my body while I'm experiencing that, not to be terrified. Well, if that's going to happen, then you got to reassure me that I'm safe. Safety is the key to healing. In one word, safety. If people feel safe, they will step into healing. If they don't, it's all lip service. Last but not least, though, goodbye exercise. That's also in that Healing the Heart and Soul book. Goodbye exercise. Saying goodbye to people that have harmed us and so on and so on. We all know about that. It's not just cord cutting. But even if you've lost someone to depression and suicide, do a goodbye exercise, which you're going to think this guy is nuts and insensitive. Not at all. A goodbye exercise means that we're able to say, and listen to this, because God created you in its image. You created children. If your child committed suicide, God created you in its image. Now you're supposed to do the same. But instead, if you lose a loved one, even if they're just still living and depressed, if you start believing in that's who they are, you're now creating them in your image of that depression. You understand what I just said there? Yeah. And if they die, and oh, my poor, and they died, and they're suicide and depression, careful. I'm not saying that that's not what happened momentarily. Don't continue to hold that image of them because you're not helping them. It doesn't make any sense at all to do that to people. My poor sweet husband died. Who is that? He's my dead husband. How long do you want to keep that one alive? A dead husband. That's my dead wife. That's my dead child. They're not dead. I promise you that. So you're the only one that believes that. They're like, boo, boo, hey, look at me. I'm right here. And you're like, oh no, you're dead. You're dead. poor thing. No, there's no poor thing. I feel good. No. You just don't know how sad and depressed you are still. No, I'm feeling all right. No. So we as healers, as I'm wrapping up here, we as healers, here's where it's at. What do you do as parents, as participants, as people in observation of these people and situations? First, remember when you're feeling those things, reach to the right people. Look, listen back at this tape and think about the things I'm suggesting, the various things you can use, and hit it from all sides. Check the nutrients, check your iron level, see if you have adrenal fatigue, see what's going on physically, but don't ignore the soul level healing. But us, when we're in observance of people going through this, you have a few choices. You can feel apathy, just kind of like detachment. It's kind of sad. That's traumatizing. But you can feel apathy. I don't really like these issues. Don't really like to be around the depression, so I'll just be cold to it. That's not going to help. Then you have sympathy, which is better, but sympathy is too much of, oh, you poor thing. But see what I'm doing? I'm affirming that whatever you're upset about is so. Oh, you poor thing. Yeah, you are sad. Oh, and they died. Oh, that's terrible. That's pity. It's not a healthy form of sympathy. It's almost always ego-based. If you start feeling healthy, spiritual sympathy, it's no longer sympathy by definition. It starts to become empathy, which means I understand where you're at. See, sympathy is more like, it sucks to be you. Empathy is, I understand that it sucks to be you, Empathy, however, is a little more objective, but it's also, I hear you. It's caring. It can be. Empathy can still become ego-based if we're not careful, but if you do it right, I understand. Here's the downside. If you practice empathy as a healer or parent, and you're still affirming that what they're struggling with is true and factual and has power over them, I'm more objective. I understand why that mean person, they say, the way to heal mean people is to have compassion. And they say compassion is rooted in empathy, meaning I can understand why they're that way. But you're still affirming that they're that way. And you don't realize it. You do your little Buddhist compassion crap, and it's not real. Because you're still saying, I used to judge people like you, but now I'm a Buddhist. So I have compassion for people like you. You're still saying they have a problem. So something's waiting from apathy to sympathy to empathy. And there's one more. It's called love. When you really understand it all. See, remember I said back, why do we ultimately feel depressed? Because we don't understand why it's happening. So the end of the story is we shift into love, and love says, I understand why you feel that way. Not, I understand why you feel that way because you've gone through difficult things. That still affirms that has power over them. When you get to love, it's, I understand that this is how you feel because of some of the things that seem to have happened to you. But I meaning any of us that do this right, our mind is in the position of, but I don't buy it. I know you can heal. I know you are healed. I know you have everything within you to pull through this. That's the strength of love. Compassion is just holding presence for you, and we're sorry, and so on. It's beautiful, but it's not all the way there. Christ consciousness teaches love, and love takes us all the way there in our understanding. We really do understand how this happened. We really do get it. Please take a few centering breaths because I'm going to take us through a couple of decree prayers to help clear all of this. Let's set aside our stuff of the world. Powerful. Be prepared for miraculous and powerful. No longer believing these things have any power over us. In this moment, Father, Mother, God, we call upon you to open all the seals of this book that I am. Open up our 7 primary chakras and prepare to clear them, especially the emotional center, but anywhere that the wickedness of the ego, the silliness of the ego has woven its spell into our life, into our being, we're prepared to say goodbye. So open these seals, for only you have the will, the consciousness, the clarity, the beauty to be given permission to open our centers fully. I joyously surrender all ego emotions of separation and instead allow my emotions and desires to be filled with the peace and happiness of God. I joyously surrender the ego emotions that drag myself and other people down and control our emotional bodies. I call forth the manifestation of God's will in which all people know the peace of Christ and are free from depression and emotional control. I call upon Archangel Michael to cut me free from all hopelessness, depression, and despair. I am taking command over my emotions through the power of Christ within me. I feel the love of God shining in me now. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego emotions that cause me to feel and experience anger, hatred, resentment, and endless conflicts. Holding grievances and attack on God's plan for salvation and keeps my emotional body trapped in fear, anxiety, and depression. My spiritual and emotional salvation comes from the spirit of love in me. Love holds no grievances. I choose to experience and manifest God's plan for salvation that I may be free and free all others as well. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego emotions that hold patterns of and feelings of sadness and loneliness in my emotional body. These feelings have haunted me and the entire collective of Christ on earth throughout our existence. These emotions are caused by the false belief that we are separate from God and therefore reflect the deep sadness and loneliness that comes from being apart from all that is. I call forth the fire of my God flame to flood my emotional body and consume all feelings of sadness, despair, loneliness. I take full responsibility for my life and I own the fact that emotions such as these are being projected down into my emotional body by my ego as a means of keeping me emotionally controlled, paralyzed, feeling hopeless. I affirm and choose to allow only my I am presence to be extended down into my life and into my emotions, thus replacing all sadness and helplessness and loneliness with happiness. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego emotions that once convinced me that just because I couldn't see, remember, or understand all the scars within my emotional body, it meant I could not heal them. I can work on my past without feeling so overwhelmed that I react by going numb or dissociating or going into denial. Although I know it's not always necessary, I am willing to witness, if need be, all of my emotional pain. I invoke waves of healing to wash through my emotional body and cleanse and consume all past wounds that once overwhelmed me. All the power of heaven stands with me and within me. I am willing to love myself unconditionally in all situations from my past. The light has come. I have forgiven all. The peace of God is shining in me now. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender the ego emotions that lead to my having expectations on how my life should be. For in allowing my ego to create unrealistic expectations, I set myself up for disappointment. Thus, my ego can control me through an endless cycle of hope, despair. I choose peace instead of this. I am now willing to be at peace with the way life is. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. I joyously surrender all ego emotions that have controlled me for so long. I once surrendered to my ego my right and ability to feel happy, which then limited how much happiness I could feel or experience in my emotional body. My function of extending and experiencing both forgiveness and happiness are one and the same. I will only experience one as I accept the other. Forgiveness brings me happiness, forgiving myself and all others. Today I allow God and all forces of light to increase instantly the quantity of happiness I can feel and experience. I simultaneously extend this happiness to all the world through my forgiveness. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. And lastly, I joyously invoke the pure compassion of Mother Mary's Immaculate Heart, the Divine Mother, to come into me as I call for it to wash over my emotional body and emotional bodies of all human beings in all dimensions. Mother Mary, Divine Mother, Let the energetic waves of your pure heart wash through and consume my burdens and the burdens of all people, so we can attain the vision and the will to rise above fears and wounds. Awaken us to the reality that as long as we are not healed, we create an ongoing connection and identification to the wounds of the past and the people who seemingly hurt us. I consciously surrender all emotions created or controlled by my ego. I say, as did the Divine Mother, O Lord, my I am presence, let my life and my emotions be according to your will. I am as God created me. I will to be the Christ on earth. All of this old out, all of the light new into all of our centers, a few centering breaths, drawing the light of God from the heavens, activating through the top of the head every chakra, all of the 7. Feeling a certain amount of the old, the stagnant, the wounds, the memories out. Just junk out. And it's clean, awaiting pure light. Crystalline light, filling every center. Peace and safety that we never knew we could feel. Let's choose to feel it now. The Holy Spirit, Archangel Michael and its legions of angels cut away all the old. And those beings of light come in, surround us and seal us with light. To make presence the consciousness of God within us. So we are the light of God. We don't surround ourselves with light to protect from a wicked world. That still affirms it all. Instead, all I know is that I am the light of God. I will to be the Christ on earth. My emotions and desires are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Hear those words and feel them. My emotions and desires are the Lord's and the fullness thereof. It means my emotional body is filled with the presence of God. There's light even in that emotional body that used to be programmed by the ego to feel loneliness, sadness, despair, or root emotions, like the idea that we're flawed. It's not true. My emotions and desires are the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. One more time. My emotions and desires are the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. My life is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. My life is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. God is raising the earth to a glorious new day. I choose to live and be the will of my Father, Mother, God. Today I choose the life of Christ. The kingdom of God is manifest in me and on earth now and forever. The complete opposite of what caused me and all of us our previous beliefs in lack and pain and limitation. Instead, the presence of God is here and now, and I choose it. This presence holds the truth and love. This presence is all-powerful. It is necessary to garden out the old roots and junk from this garden of our mind, but thank God that Spirit will help us replant the appropriate things that bring us a fruitful garden of consciousness. And so it is. Good. Thank you, guys.